Problem 4. Find the equivalent capacitance of the given combination. Assume that C1 is 10 microfarad, C2 is 8 microfarad, and C3 is 4 microfarad. And its figure is given here. And you can see there are three capacitors, C1, C2, and C3. Now we have to find the equivalent capacitance value of this three capacitor arrangement. So let's we see C1 and C2. Here C1 and C2 are arranged in series. So we know the formula. We already studied the formula for capacitors arranged in series. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to find the equivalent capacitance for these two capacitors which was arranged in series, and then I'm going to compare that capacitance value with C3. So let's we start with C1 and C2. Here C1 and C2 are in series. So I'm going to use the formula 1 over C equivalent capacitance for C1 and C2 is given by the rule 1 over C1 plus 1 over C2. And now I have to rearrange this equation. If you rearrange this equation, we will get 1 over C equivalent, which is equal to C1 C2. In the top we will get C2 plus C1, and after that I'm going to change this equation in terms of C equivalent. So that means the reciprocal of this equation is C equivalency, right? So the C equivalent, which is equal to C1 C2 divided by C2 plus C1. So this equivalent capacitance is only for C1 and C2. That means if you redraw the diagram, the given diagram, after we got the equivalent capacitance for this C1 and C2, we can redraw this diagram as C1 and C2, and then now we have to consider C3. So that means this capacitor is C equivalent of C1 and C2. So now we can see we have to compare our C equivalent capacitance of C1 and C2 with, this is C2, okay? So this is C2 with C3. Now you can see the C equivalent capacitors of C1 and C2 are exactly parallel with C3. So now what we have to do, we have to use the formula for the capacitors arranged in parallel. So now I have to write something. So now we have to write C1 and C2 after we make combine together. Now C1 and C2 are parallel with C3, and we know the formula for capacitors arranged in parallel. So C equivalent of these three capacitor arrangement is given by C equivalent capacitance of series plus the third capacitor. As we already have the formula for C equivalent capacitance in series, so this is the C equivalent for series. So now I have to substitute this equation here, C1 C2 over C2 plus C1 plus C3. Now once you substitute the value, we will get the answer for the equivalent capacitance for these three capacitor arrangement. So better we can write the given first. So C1 they mention 10 microfarad, and C2 8 microfarad, and C3 4 microfarad. So we just go back to the question and we can have a look whether the values are correct or not. 10 8 4, right? So 10 8 4 is right. So now I'm going to substitute these values. I'm going to substitute these three values in this equation for getting the answer for C equivalent for the three capacitor arrangement. So C equivalent, which is equal to 10 multiply 10 power minus 6 multiply with C2, 8 multiply 10 power minus 6 divided by 10 plus 8 multiply, because it's both are micro, right? 10 power minus 6 plus Our C3 value is 4 microfarad. So 4 multiplied by 10 power minus 6. So once you just work out this part, you will get the final answer as C equivalent for the 3 capacitor arrangement as 8.44 multiply 10 power minus 6 farad. That means 8.44 microfarad. So this is the answer for this question. Thank you.